time for Michigan's newest sports talk show, Mitten Madness.
And here he goes. Defense win championship.
Michigan sports talk from here in Battle Creek. The latest stories, the biggest games, all across the Mitten State.
That's not something to play with.
Streaming live and on demand on the 95.3 WBCK app. Your host, Da'Jzon Hughes.
Good morning on this Saturday morning. Welcome to another episode of the Mitten Madness here on 95.3 WBCK. I am your host, Da'Jzon Hughes, and we're about to jump into an hour of nothing but Michigan sports. Before we do that, obviously, I'm doing well. I hope that all of you are doing well. This is going to be a fantastic weekend as football season is officially back. Yes, football is being played, and we're all happy about it. This week, we're going to be diving into, obviously, we can't forget about our Detroit Tigers. They're going to be the first thing we touch on as they continue to dominate the AL Central and get ready for September. And, of course, October as they look to make a push to win the World Series. We're going to touch on the Lions and college football as a whole as we get ready to step into another fall of nothing but amazing football. And then we're going to touch on fantasy football before getting into our picks to end the show. I am doing fantastic. This weekend is going to be fun. Going out to a concert. Well, I went out to a concert last night as you're listening to this on Saturday. That was an enjoyable time. Saturday, I'm out, pumped up. Got a lacrosse clinic coming up at 1 o'clock today. And then I get to enjoy sports for most of the day before popping out and enjoying some time with family and friends. So I hope that your weekend is going to be just as fun as mine as we have tons of football coming up over the next couple of months. And now that we're done talking about football for the time being, let's get over into the baseball realm, which has been an exciting one for us here in the state of Michigan. We'll start with our standings by division across the MLB as we always do. The Detroit Tigers atop of the AL Central at 76-53. They're 9.5 games above the Royals, who have now jumped into second place at 66-62. The Cleveland Guardians 64-62, 10.5 games behind the Tigers. 17 games behind the Tigers with a 58-69 record of the Minnesota Twins. And the Chicago White Sox closing up the back end of the AL Central, 45-82, 30 games behind the Tigers. The AL West still has the Astros at the top, 70-58, but they're only 2 games above the Mariners, who are 68-60 at 63-66, 7.5 games behind the Astros are the Texas Rangers. In the AL East, the Toronto Blue Jays continue to extend their lead in that division over the Yankees. The Blue Jays are 74-54. The Yankees in second at 69-58, 4.5 games behind the Blue Jays. 5 games behind the Blue Jays are the Red Sox at 69-59. Looking at the NL East, the Philadelphia Phillies 74-53. They're 7 games above the Mets at 67-60. And then the Miami Marlins are 60-67, and they're 14 games behind the Phillies. The Brewers still atop of the NL Central at 80-48. The Cubs are 7 games behind them at 73-55. And the Reds cleaning up third place, 13 games behind the Brewers at 67-61. Coming in at 73-55, leading the NL West are the Los Angeles Dodgers. The San Diego Padres are 1 game behind them at 72-56. And in third place, the Arizona Diamondbacks are 11 games behind the Dodgers at 62-66. When you look at the MLB overall, the Milwaukee Brewers still lead the entire league at 80-48. The Tigers are 4.5 games behind them, and the Phillies are 5.5 games behind the Brewers. The Blue Jays 6 games behind the Brewers, and the Los Angeles Dodgers cleaning up 5th place, tied with the Cubs, 7 games behind the Brewers. When you look at the league separately, the Detroit Tigers have now reclaimed first place in the American League over the Toronto Blue Jays. They hold a 1.5 game lead. They're plus 96 in the score differential at the moment, holding a current 3-game win streak, and they're 8-2 in their last 10 with a 99.9% chance of making the playoffs. before we go any further, obviously we're going to touch on our team leaders. Riley Green still leading the pack on the batting side in all three categories. A 263 batting average, 317 on the OBP, 503 on the slugging percentage. He's got 29 home runs and 92 RBIs. Pitching has a slight change, which I did not see coming. Tarek Skubal, 2.32 on the ERA. He's got 11 wins and 200 strikeouts. But the most wins on the team now goes to Casey Mize, who has 103 strikeouts on the year and a 3.63 ERA. Let's look at that schedule for the Detroit Tigers. They did drop one game to the Angels last weekend. They won the first game 6-5, lost 7-4 in the second, won the third game 9-5. Took down the Chicago White Sox 2-1 in game one, lost 9-6 in game two, and then won game three 1-0. And then they did what we all needed them to do. They came up just shy of a sweep of the Minnesota Twins. They won the first game 4-3-11. The second game 7-0, third game 8-5, and then they lost the last game 8-1. So they do currently hold a 4-3 series win over the Minnesota Twins in the year. The Houston Astros came into town, and the Tigers did exactly what we needed them to do. Swept them right on out of Comerica. 10-0 in the first game, a 1-0 win in 10 innings in the second game, and then they were able to come out with a 7-2 whopping in game three, which has the Tigers right back on track. As we noted, they're 8-2 in their last 10. They're back atop of the American League, and they've added some cushion to that lead in the AL Central. Going into a series, an AL Central series this weekend. First game was last night against the Kansas City Royals. Second game is later today, 6:10 p.m. at Comerica Park. Flaherty taking on Lugo. And then, that's tomorrow. Paddock taking on Wacha. And then tomorrow at 1:40 p.m. at Comerica, Flaherty takes on Lugo. Then the Tigers go on the road to start the week next week, which we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that series by looking at the game cast for that once we get back to the scores. Coming up on Monday, they're going to be traveling out to Sacramento, California, at Sutter Health Park, where the Oakland Athletics play their games. The Tigers have a 70.8% chance to win the first game of the series. It'll be Tarek Skubal on the mound against JT Ginn. Ginn is 2-5 with a 4.95 ERA. And only 60 innings pitched, 62 hits given up, 66 strikeouts, 20 walks, and 13 home runs, compared to Skubal's 11-3, 2.32 ERA, and almost 160 innings pitched, 113 hits given up, 200 strikeouts, which he reached an elite Tigers category in doing so in just one season, 25 walks, and 13 home runs. Shea Langeliers and Tyler Soderstrom are leading the batting side for the A's, while Jeffrey Springs all down the line leading the pitching side for the A's. That's 10:05 first pitch on MLB Network, as the Tigers are 34-29 on the road. The Oakland Athletics just 26-37 playing in their home stadium. Looking at game two, that's coming up on Tuesday. And then they'll also have game three on Wednesday. Game two is going to be a 10:05 first pitch on MLB Network as well. Charlie Morton will take on Jack Perkins. 53.6% chance for the Tigers to win this game, just 46.4 for the A's. Morton's 9-10 with a 5.09 ERA and 123 innings, 126 hits given up, 130 strikeouts, 56 walks, and 19 home runs. Perkins 3-2 on the year, 4.19 ERA and 38 innings pitched, 27 hits, 37 strikeouts, 18 walks, and just 4 homers. Game three will be a 10:05 first pitch as well. Will not be on any linear networks. Casey Mize, 12-4 on the year, 3.63 ERA in 111 innings, 110 hits, 103 strikeouts, 29 walks, and 16 homers. Meanwhile, Luis Morales is just 1-0 with a 1.86 ERA in 9 innings, 8 hits, 9 strikeouts, 8 walks, and no homers given up. Currently, the Tigers lead this series 2-1, 11-4 win for the Tigers back on June 24th. The A's beat the Tigers 3-0, 6-25, and then the Tigers bounced back 6-26 and won 8-0 to take that series. They'll look to take at least 2 out of the 3 to have a 4-2 series lead on the A's. Tigers should be able to take care of business here and hopefully take care of business as they continue to move forward. There's no question that they're going to make the playoffs, so I don't think that is a concern for them anymore. I think as they look over the next couple of weeks, they want to win this series against the Royals and the next one they have against them next weekend, as that's going to be, important for divisional record and that such. The Mets, who are a playoff team, would love to see the Tigers beat a playoff team to prove that they should be in the spot that they're in and that they will continue to have success once the playoffs roll around. The Cubs or the White Sox, once again, is another one of those divisional series that you need to win because it's a divisional series. The Yankees, once again, a playoff team that you want to see beat. There should be no problem with the Marlins. But then you play Cleveland twice, and sandwiched in between those 2 series are the Braves. That's not only 2 playoff teams, but also 2 divisional series within that span as well before ending the season with Boston, another playoff team. So if they can win at least half of these, if not more than half of these series, the Tigers are going to be in a phenomenal spot rolling into the playoffs. We're going to talk football when we come back for the break with more Mitten Madness on 95.3 WBCK. Welcome back into Mitten Madness on 95.3 WBCK. It's time for us to talk about some football as it is all right around the corner. The Lions have their final preseason game coming up before the regular season starts. That game is going to be later today, 1 p.m. on ESPN Unlimited. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but I do know that local blackouts apply. So 9 times out of 10, none of us here will be able to physically watch that game unless you go, because it is at Ford Field. The Texans will be coming in to take on the Lions. The Lions are 1-2 in this preseason so far. They're 0-2 in games at Ford Field. The Texans are 0-1 on the road. They're 1-1 in their preseason games. So they do have some notable injuries, as Joe Mixon is not expected to return until September 7th, along with C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Xavier Johnson, Blake Fisher, and Christian Harris are all still listed on the injury report. Meanwhile, the Lions, Graham Glasgow, Josh Pascal, Ahmad Hassanin, Keaton Sutherland, and DiCaprio Boodle are all listed on the injury report as well. The Lions went down 24-17 to the Dolphins last week after beating the Falcons 17-10. Meanwhile, the Texans dropped a game to the Minnesota Vikings 20-10 before beating the Carolina Panthers 20-3. Slovis has been their quarterback so far for most of the preseason, 16 of 27 for 122 yards. Will Marks got 10 carries for 44 yards. Smith Jr. has 5 receptions, 46 yards. Meanwhile, on the Lions side of things, Kyle Allen still leading all passing, 30 of 39 for 335 yards, 4 TDs and just 2 interceptions. Sailors leads the running backs, 24 carries and 80 yards, while the receiving goes to Mr. Meeks at 11 receptions for 176 yards and 2 TDs. The Lions did open as 1.5-point favorites for this game, and they're currently 125 on the money line as favorites to take down the Texans in their last preseason game. But realistically, this is the game where you see your starters play an entire quarter, maybe a half, and you see what your team really has for the season. This actually is a very good matchup. I think that the Houston Texans defense has all the abilities to challenge the Detroit Lions offense and possibly even stop them, but it's just a matter of how quickly the Lions offense will click with each other and be able to use all of the playmakers that they have on that side of the ball to get rid of some of this concern that everyone has with the new coordinators being in place. And at the same time, the Houston Texans offense has tons and tons of weapons, which means the Lions defense is going to be stretched out a little bit, and they're going to have to excuse me, they're going to have to be able to cover every inch of the field. They're going to have to be able to get pressure in on the quarterbacks. They're going to have to be able to plug up the run game, which is a lot to ask of a defense. Normally, you're able to kind of have an advantage in one part of the game and not have to worry so much there. But I think the Houston Texans offense is so balanced that it will, make some things difficult for the Lions defense that they'll be able to address. And then those won't be concerns when the season comes up because they're able to deal with them here in the preseason. This is going to be a phenomenal game. I think the Lions have a great chance of winning. I think it's going to be a very close game. And the Texans will give everything they have. Wouldn't be surprised to see the Texans come out on top. But just know that the starters will play in this game some, and you'll see kind of what the Lions really have to offer. I think that the offense is in a much better place than the defense, but I think that if you have a healthy defense that's firing on multiple cylinders, the Lions will once again be very competitive in the NFL, probably win the NFC North, and have a very good chance of hosting some playoff games while trying to get to their first Super Bowl appearance in team history. That isn't the only football we've got going on. College football is here. Technically, week 0 is popping off this weekend. They're going to call it week 1 and have week 1 extend through 2 weeks, but I think this is week 0. The big game of the weekend kicks off at noon in just over an hour as you're listening to this. Iowa State will be taking on Kansas State. This game will be played in Dublin, Ireland, the Aviva Stadium game, and the Aer Lingus College Football Classic as Kansas State starts the year at 17, while Iowa State starts the year at 22. It's interesting that these two teams will be starting the year with a Big 12 conference game. They're starting the year with a conference game. That's a huge, huge thing that could go down. I mean, we saw it last year with Florida State. I think that kind of started their downward spiral is you go out and you play in Dublin, Ireland, and you lose to Georgia Tech, who's not only not as good as, wasn't a ranked team, but also is a conference rival and opponent. So now you're not only starting the year 0-1, but you're starting conference play 0-1 before you're even able to really dip into conference play. It's a huge gamble. One of these teams is starting 1-0 in conference play as well with a huge jump on the season, and the other one's starting behind the 8 ball on both the regular season overall and in conference play. But it should be an extremely exciting game as we dive into the game cast a little bit, just looking at their last 5 games. Iowa State was 4-1 in their last 5. They just had an abysmal loss to the Arizona State University in the hands of Cam Scatterbo and the rest of that offense, 45-19, before going on to beat Miami in their bowl game, 42-41, in what turned out to be one of the better bowl games of last season. Currently opening the game, or at the opening of the game, the Kansas State Wildcats were a 3-point favorite, and the over-under was 49.5. I won't dive too much deeper into this game. Kansas was 2-3 in their last 5. They lost to Houston 24-19, Arizona State 24-14, and Iowa State 29-21 before beating they did beat Cincinnati and Rutgers during that time span as well, 41-15 in their game over Cincinnati. And then they won their bowl game over Rutgers 44-41, which is an interesting score because, as everybody knows, Rutgers is the birthplace of football, but they haven't been great in the recent years. We'll touch more on Iowa and Kansas State later in the show when we do we select that game for picks. But also in week 0, going down on Saturday, Idaho State will be going to take on UNLV at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas at 4 p.m., 6:30 p.m. on Fox from David Booth Kansas Memorial Stadium in Loris, Kansas. Fresno State will be visiting the Kansas Jayhawks. This game will be played on WBCK, which I will remind you of later on in the show. So later today, we get some college football right here on WBCK. Sam Houston on the road at Houchins Industries LT Stadium in Bowling Green, Kentucky to take on Western Kentucky on CBS Sports Network. And then capping the night off, 7:30 p.m., CBS and Paramount Plus from Clarence T.C. Ching Athletics Complex in Honolulu, Hawaii. Stanford Cardinal will take on the Rainbow Warriors from Hawaii. Week 0's here. And I mean, before we talk again next week, Boise State will play Thursday on ESPN, 5:30 p.m. from Raymond James Stadium as they take on South Florida in Tampa. BTN gets their first game of the year at 6 p.m. on Thursday. Ohio will visit Rutgers at Shai Stadium in Piscataway, New Jersey. Also at 6 p.m. on ESPN Plus, Lafayette and Bowling Green. And there's plenty other games going down that night as well. Minnesota and Buffalo will play on FS1 at 8 p.m. That's in Minneapolis, Minnesota at Huntington Bank Stadium. Nebraska and Cincinnati, a 9 p.m. kickoff from Gaya Field at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City, Missouri. That's a neutral site game, which is an interesting place to have a game. Snapdragon Stadium in San Diego, California will be the host of Stony Brook and San Diego State at 10 p.m. BTN getting a doubleheader that night. Camp Randall Stadium in Madison, Wisconsin will see the Red Hawks of Miami, Ohio visit the Badgers from Wisconsin. Friday night, Western Michigan will take on Michigan State, 7 p.m. on FS1. That's at Spartan Stadium in East Lansing. Michigan State did open this game as 19.5-point favorites, and they remain 19.5-point favorites. The over-under was 49.5, and that's still where it sits now as MSU is a -1,000 favorite for this game. It's going to be next Friday, 7 p.m. for the kickoff. 84.3% chance for the Spartans to win this game. Just a 15.7% chance for the Broncos to come out with a upset. They are both 1-4 in their last 5. They both lost their last games, which were regular season games. Or excuse me, the Broncos had a bowl game that they lost to Southern Alabama 30-23. They did beat Eastern in their season finale 26-18. Meanwhile, Michigan State beat Purdue 24-17 before losing their season finale in the regular season 41-14 to Rutgers and not qualifying for a bowl game. This is going to be a huge starter for both of these teams. Western may be going into this game looking like, hey, if we come out with an upset, we're absolutely rolling, and we like the way that the season looks for us. And not to coin PJ Fleck, but let's row the boat, right? Versus the Spartans looking to win this game to boost their season and kind of be like, hey, we were supposed to win this game. It just kind of solidifies confidence in ourselves that we can continue to win games forward. I think the team that wins this game will be much better off than the team that loses. But I think Michigan State probably has a worse time bouncing back from a loss than the Broncos do, because the Broncos may even be looking at it like, hey, it's Michigan State. We win some, we lose some, right? We're going to dive into fantasy football when we come back for the break before we get into our picks with more Mitten Madness on 95.3 WBCK.
Detroit sports fans, Wolverines and Spartans alike, this is your sports show, Mitten Madness, with Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes on 95.3 WBCK.
Back in the Mitten Madness on 95.3 WBCK. Football season is here, which also means Fantasy football season is here. Everybody's getting ready or has already had their drafts, trying to manage their rosters, make trades, hit the free agency blocks, and see what they can do to produce themselves a championship this year. Really, everybody just wants to stay out of the toilet bowl, and every year that seems to get harder and harder. Some of the best picks for each slot in rounds 1 and 2 and 10-team leagues. I mean, Jamar Chase is obviously a best option for draft slot number 1. Also, Bijan Robinson and Saquon Barkley. But then when you look at round 2, where you get pick 20, maybe Derrick Henry, Bucky Irvin, or Josh Jacobs are available. Nico Collins, A.J. Brown, Drake London may even still be there. But you also have Brock Bowers, who could possibly be a luxury here or even in the 3rd round, depending on who's available. You got T. Higgins, Tyreek Hill, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and Jaden Daniels all available as well. Justin Jefferson, Jahmyr Gibbs, CeeDee Lamb thrown in round 1 of pick 2. Meanwhile, round 2, pick 19, where, you got Lamar Jackson getting thrown in the mix now. Jonathan Taylor, Kyren Williams are all there as well. The first 2 slots, most notable names are Jamar Chase and Josh Jacobs. Then, the second slot, you got Robinson and Taylor, Bijan Robinson and Jonathan Taylor. That is Justin Jefferson and Bucky Irvin are most likely to be picked. With the 3rd slot is some more names start to come up. Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Trey McBride, all listed here. You also have Brian Thomas Jr. making his way in to the discussion as you get into draft slot 4. But Gibbs and Henry are most likely to go here. Draft slot 5, some new names get thrown in. Chase Brown, Kyren Williams, but they're looking at Saquon Barkley or Drake London as most likely to be picked. New names are once again slotted in for draft slot number 6. Ashton Genty, the most notable to come up here, is a rookie. Puka Nacua, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Christian McCaffrey, and Malik Neighbors are also brought up in this discussion. James Cook and Ladd McConkey come up while talking about this draft slot, but CeeDee Lamb and Amon-Ra St. Brown are the top 2 for that draft slot number 6. The next slot doesn't bring any new players, but St. Brown and Collins are listed as most notable to be taken with draft slot number 7. Devon Achane and Brian Thomas Jr. make their way into the discussion for draft slot number 8. Brock Bowers, Josh Jacobs are also there, but Nacua and Achane most likely to be taken there. Nico Collins, Derrick Henry are obviously up for slot number 9, but it's McCaffrey and Thomas that are the ones to be most likely to be picked. And then slot 10 doesn't bring anyone new either, but Neighbors and Genty should be your top picks there. All of this is according to Tristan H. Cockcroft, who is a writer and does a lot of football and fantasy football things for ESPN. But, there's the biggest thing about fantasy football is trying to balance out your team. And a big question is, can you draft a top 5 quarterback and a top 3 tight end and still like the rest of your team? So when you look at top 5 quarterbacks, Joe Burrow may still be in the same category as Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes has to be somewhere along that list as well. And then top 3 tight ends, Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, George Kittle. Obviously, Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews are still amongst that situation as well. But when you look at how things can, shake out, Jalen Hurts would have to be a 4th round selection. Derrick Henry in the 2nd, DeAndre Swift in the 7th, Justin Jefferson in the first, Xavier Worthy in the fifth, Trey McBride in the third, and DK Metcalf in the sixth. That's a pretty solid lineup. I think that if you were able to put that lineup together, you very easily could produce a fantastic lineup where you have a top 5 tight end and a top 3 tight end, a top 5 quarterback, and like your team. That team is absolutely fantastic. It's a team I would run in, but Mike Clay has an ultimate draft board that has the perfect picks for every round in a 12-team league. Round 1, you want to take the best receiver available if you cannot get Bijan Robinson. Round 2, Jonathan Taylor, or the best running back left on the board. Round 3, you should be looking at Trey McBride and no one else. Round 4, one of the top 4 dual threat quarterbacks. That includes Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, and Jaden Daniels. Round 5, James Conner. So, like you said, sometimes you have to be boring. But if you can't get Conner, you want to go after DeAndre Swift or maybe DK Metcalf, Xavier Worthy, and even Sam Laporta is a solid tight end pickup. In round 3, if you can't get a hold of Trey McBride, they say Lad McConkey, Tyreek Evans, or even James Cook are all great options instead. Round 6, Travion Henderson. But obviously, if Henderson is not available, they say Calvin Ridley at receiver, Travis Hunter, Jameson Williams, or George Pickens are all fantastic options. The middle rounds are where things get interesting. Round 7, they say Jalen Waddle or Rome Odunze. Chris Godwin's also a great option here. Jerry Jeudy, Chris Olave. Caleb Johnson is a name to watch here at running back, along with Najee Harris and Jalen Warren. Number 9, Ricky Pearsall. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, also mentioned Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders, along with Jaden Blue, come up as well. They say this is a good time to throw a dart at the quarterback position if you want to get a fringe QB1 like Caleb Williams, Brock Purdy, or Dak Prescott to most likely be a backup quarterback for you. In round 10, Michael Pittman Jr. Cortland Sutton comes up here as well. With Daniel Jones winning the Colts starting job, though, Michael Pittman may have a pretty solid season this year. Malik Neighbors in this conversation. Tylan Warren is there. Emeka Egbuka from the Buccaneers should be a nice option here, along with quarterback Justin Fields and Jordan Mason from running back for the 10th pick. Round 11, Jaden Higgins and Keon Coleman are your top options here, but they say Tank Bigsby, Basul Tootin, and Jaden Blue should also be respective options here. Round 12, which we will all love so much, Colston Loveland is who a lot of people should be having their eyes on. They say he's going to be a great tight end fill for them in Chicago, even though he should be a backup mouth, as there are a lot of mouths to feed there. But you're also looking at J.J. McCarthy, Jordan Love, Drake May, all on your radar in this. And then 13 and 14, you're looking for high ceiling insurance and breakout candidates. Quarterback flyers, you got Cameron Ward, Michael Penix Jr., Bryce Young. Running back insurance, Trey Benson, Tyler Algier, Will Shipley, Quinshon Junkins, Jerome Ford. Wide receiver veterans like Keenan Allen, Adam Thielen, Demario Douglas, Hollywood Brown. You're also looking for rookie and sophomore flyers from the receiver standpoint, like Trey Harris, Luther Burden III, Xavier Legette, Jalen McMillan. Tight end options like Chig Okonkwo, Darren Waller, Kyle Pitts Sr. And then obviously you want to start looking at kickers, defense, and more breakout candidates. So we're going to be back with our picks as we get ready to get into more football. But we got more Mitten Madness on 95.3 WBCK.
95.3 WBCK.
Welcome back into Mitten Madness on 95.3 WBCK. It's time for us to get into the picks for the weekend. But before we do that, we got to talk about last weekend. Last weekend, I went a whopping 6-1 because we had the carryover series from the Tigers. The only loss I had was the Sparks not being able to take down the Mystics. So I ended last season 55-29. What a phenomenal season from myself. Obviously, we're going to start a new season this week because football is back. And I said we would be starting a new season as football comes around. So it's a fresh new season of picks. Make sure you're tagging along, taking all the same games that we're running, picking picks alongside us, send in those picks using the WBCK, the chat feature of the WBCK app, and see how good you are compared to me. Maybe you're better than I am. Maybe you aren't. But we're going to get into what's going to be a fun weekend of picks and sports right here on WBCK. We'll start in the octagon this time, something we don't normally do. It's going to be a UFC fight night at Mercedes-Benz Arena in Shanghai, China. The prelims start at 3 a.m. and the main card is at 6 a.m. Johnny Walker in the light heavyweight main event will take on Ming-Yang Zhang. But before we talk about the main event, we're going to talk about the co-main. It's going to be a catchweight fight. Brian Ortega, 16-4, will be taking on Aljamain Sterling, who's 24-5. Ortega's 5'8", 153 pounds, 34 years old, 69 inches on the reach, a switch stance fighter who lands 39.75% of his significant strikes. Meanwhile, Aljamain Sterling, 5'7", 153 pounds, 36 years old, 71 inches on the reach. He's an orthodox fighter who lands his significant strikes 61.65% of the time. Currently, Aljamain Sterling opens the fight odds -40 on the money line. Ortega's plus 325. They are expecting this to go over half a round, as that's the -750 favorite. It is expected to go the distance at a -160 favorite, but I think this one's pretty simple for me. I've seen both of them fight as they're both out of the United States a handful of times, but the advantage comes on the feet and the takedown, as the takedown accuracy for Aljamain Sterling is 3% better than Ortega. It almost seems as Aljamain Sterling is just an all-around better fighter than Ortega. I'm going to take Sterling as the favorite here to win what should be a very exciting catchweight bout. Into the next bout of the night in the octagon, the last fight of the morning, the night, I'm not sure what you want to call it. Johnny Walker, 21-9 in the light heavyweight main event, 6'6", 206 pounds, 33 years old, 82 inches on the reach, an orthodox fighter who lands 58.53% of his significant strikes. Meanwhile, Ming-Yang Zhang is 6'2", 206 pounds, 27 years old, 75.5 inches on the reach. He's an orthodox fighter who lands 65.5% of his significant strikes. Johnny Walker's 100% in his takedown accuracy, but Zhang has not even attempted to take anyone down. He's 19-6 in his pro career, while Walker's 21-9. Walker's a plus 290 on the fight cards, while it's -380 for Zhang. They are expecting this to go under 3.5 rounds, as that's a -350 on the cards, but it's not expected to go the distance, as they said, -1600 on the cards. I don't know much about Walker or Zhang, but fighting in your home country, most likely his home city, where you have somewhat of an advantage, you're younger, you're landing higher significant strikes, you haven't really been on the ground at all, should be a very fun fight. But I'm going to take Zhang to come out on top, because fighting at home is different than fighting on the road. That's going to get us inside for just a moment. Again, we're going to stay inside, but this time we're going hardwood. More WNBA action as the Las Vegas Aces, who are 23-14 on the year. They're 9-9 when they're on the road, are traveling to Washington, D.C. later today, 3 p.m. to take on the Washington Mystics, who are 16-20 on the year. They're 10-8 while they're at home. This game's from the Care First Arena. The Aces have a 64.3% chance to win this game, while the Mystics just a 35.7% chance The Mystics currently hold a 2-1 series lead, where the road team has only won once, and that was the Mystics back in June. Currently, Las Vegas is second in the Western Conference at 23-14, while the Mystics are trying to hold on to a fourth place spot in the Eastern Conference. This game is going to be exciting. J.C. Sheldon and Georgia Amore are out for the Mystics. Cheyenne Parker Tyus out for the Aces. But none of those people are Asia Wilson. Sonia Citron has had a fantastic year for the Mystics alongside Kiki Arifin. But at the end of the day, when Aja Wilson's on the other side, it's hard to stop her, especially with the way she's played of recent. I'm going to take the Aces to go on the road and win a game and continue to make a push for that first spot in the West as the Minnesota Lynx try and run away with it. We got another game going down on the hardwood this weekend. It's the New York Liberty going on the road all the way down to Atlanta, well, technically College Park, Georgia, to the Gateway Center for a 2 p.m. game on CBS to take on the Atlanta Dream. The Liberty are 22-14. They're 8-9 this year on the road. They have a 51% chance of winning this game, while the Dream are 23-13. They're 11-5 while playing at the Gateway Center. Anescu is leading the Liberty in points, while it's Gray for the Dream. Anescu leads in rebounds, while it's Jones for the Dream. Gray leading in assists for the Dream, while Natasha Cloud leads for the Liberty. Liberty still facing some injuries as Brianna Stewart is out until at least August 28th. Isabel Harrison out, and maybe she's back for this game, maybe not. Naira Sabali is also out until at least the 25th. Jordan Canada will be out for the Dream until at least the 27th. New York holds a 2-1 series lead. The home team has won every single game in this series. New York is 5-5 in their last 10, while the Dream are 8-2, including a 75-73 win over the Minnesota Lynx, which is huge. But also, Liberty have a 10-point win over the Lynx in their last 5. They also have a 6-point loss to the Lynx. They have a loss to the Aces as well, including a dominating win over the Sparks. This should be an exciting game as they are 1-2 in the Eastern Conference. This is basically for first place. The winner of this game will be in first place and will hold a tiebreaker. Currently, Atlanta's a 1-game lead on New York, and I think they're going to extend that lead, although ESPN does not agree with me. I think the Atlanta Dream have everything they need, and they're playing 11-5 at home in a series where the home team has won every single game. Trends matter in sports, and I'm going to stick with this trend and take the Dream. That's going to get us into the one thing that we are most excited for this time of year. Football. Football's back. We're back in a football stadium, and both of these are going to be outdoor stadiums. We're going to start with the game that's going to be on WBCK later today. Fresno State Bulldogs are traveling over the David Booth Kansas Memorial Stadium in Lawrence, Kansas to take on the Kansas Jayhawks. 6:30 p.m. for kickoff, and the Jayhawks have an 89.8% chance to win this game. Just a 10.2% chance for the Bulldogs. Bulldogs are 1-4 in their last 5, including a bowl game loss in double overtime to Northern Illinois University. Meanwhile, Kansas didn't qualify for a bowl last year, ended their season on a 45-17 loss to rival Baylor, but they did beat Colorado, BYU, and Iowa State before losing after losing to Kansas State before that to end their season. Both teams going to look to come out and make a bang to start their year, but there's no telling who's going to be on the upside of this one. Kansas did open as 12.5-point favorites. It's now 13 points, and the game started at 51.5 for the over-under. It is now at 49.5. I'm going to take Kansas in this game because as much as I would love to see a Fresno State Bulldogs upset, I'm not sure that I can bank on something like that happening, although Kansas isn't the kind of team that necessarily will run away with a game like this. It very well could be a close game, something that we will have our eyes and ears on later today. And that's going to get us into the very first college football game of the season, the Aer Lingus College Football Classic, which will be going down at Aviva Stadium in Dublin, Ireland. Noon is going to be kickoff. It's going to be on ESPN. So in just over an hour, we're getting our first college football action for the season. The 22 ranked in the country Iowa State Cyclones will be taking on Big 12 rival and 17th ranked in the country Kansas State Wildcats. We talked a little bit about this game earlier when we dived into college football and how their seasons looked at the end of last year. Currently, Kansas State is a 3-point favorite. That's what the game opened up at. The over-under was 49.5. It is now 51.5. Iowa State started the game at -110, while Kansas State was -115. And while that money line has significantly shifted, Iowa State is a +135 on this money line, while Kansas State is a -155. Kansas State has a 62.3% chance to win this game, while Iowa State has a 37.7% chance. And although it's the beginning of the year, upsets happen. I don't know that Iowa State has enough to upset the Wildcats. I'm going to take Kansas State and the whole city of Kansas to be rejoicing as both of their college football teams win this weekend, according to me. That gives me Kansas State, Kansas, the Atlanta Dream, the Las Vegas Asics, Zhang, and Sterling in my picks this week. We do have tons of coming up over the next week. We got our first game, obviously, Fresno State, Kansas, coming up 6:30 p.m. later today on WBCK. We also have high school football starting next Thursday, 7 p.m., as we'll see Harper Creek and Lakeview battle each other to start the season next Thursday before getting into our first Michigan football game of the year and more. Have an amazing weekend, because we will as well. We're going to get you back with more Mitten Madness next week on 95.3 WBCK.
Join Da'Jzon Hughes every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. for Mitten Madness on 95.3 WBCK. Miss the show or want to run it back? Stream Mitten Madness on demand on the WBCK app. Sponsored by AirwayCashForJunkCars.com.
Lowe's knows that no matter your paint project, saving is at the top of your list. That's why when you shop today, you can buy one, get one free select Valspar and HGTV Home by Sherwin-Williams one-coat coverage interior paints via rebate. Shop these deals in-store or online today at Lowe's. We help, you save. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. Discount taken at time of purchase. See sales associate for details. Offer valid 8/21 through 9/3.
Coach, the energy out there felt different. What changed for the team today?
It was the new game day scratchers from the California Lottery. Players, everything. Those games sent the team's energy through the roof.
Are you saying it was the off-field play that made the difference on the field?
Hey, a little play makes your day, and today, it made the game. That's all for now.
Coach, one more question.
Play the new Los Angeles Chargers, San Francisco 49ers, and Los Angeles Rams Scratchers from the California Lottery. A little play can make your day. Please play responsibly. Must be 18 years or older to purchase, play, or claim.